Picture this. A 16th century young man, eager to start his life, suddenly hears that his father died, and he returns home to help his family and their business. Time moves along, and it all seems to be going well. He got married, he had 3 kids, life's pretty great. But then, out of nowhere, taxes ruin his business. His wife passed away, and he loses all of his children within 1 year. He was devastated. Instead of getting swallowed by depression or survivor's guilt, he surrounds himself in his faith. It takes time, but he becomes one of the most respected members of his community, and his story stands to inspire others going through loss and pain. There is always hope. Howdy all, and welcome to another episode of the Sanctified Podcast, the show where we explore the stories of various saints throughout history and learn about what they did and how we come to recognize them as saints today. Today, we're going to explore the life of Saint Alphonsus Rodriguez, a man who lost his business, his wife, his children, everything except his faith. Alphonsus Rodriguez, or Alfonso or Alphonse Rodriguez, was born on July 25th, 1532 in Segovia, Spain. He was the second of 11 children. His father was a simple wool merchant who regularly went to church and prayed to God. When Alphonsus was a young boy, the Jesuit Peter Faber visited Segovia, and Alphonsus' father offered their home as a place for Peter to stay. And this visit changed Alphonsus' life forever. Alphonsus received his first communion at the end of the visit, and then, when he was 12 years old, he started attending the Jesuit college at Alcala. Unfortunately, he was unable to finish his studies because his father passed away, and he had to return home to help his family business and help his mother run everything. That was a pretty tough time for him. He likely questioned his faith right then because he was going to school to become closer to God, but that's also when his father was taken away from him. I'm sure it felt like a sort of betrayal almost, but he realized that sentiment wouldn't be what his father would want. It wasn't his place to question God. He just had to take it and roll. After a little over a decade, Alphonsus married Maria Suarez when he was 26 years old. And together, they had 3 children, and life really seemed pretty great for a little while. But then, taxes for the wool for his business really went crazy, and they became far too burdensome, and he and his family had to abandon the business that his father started. And around that same time, when he was 31 years old, he lost his wife, and then 2 of his children altogether. This was around the time when plagues were going across Europe, and I'm sure there was something pretty severe that they caught and never recovered from. And after this, he once again was questioning his faith. Everything was just falling apart. What once seemed so great was falling apart all around him. But he didn't abandon his faith. He just devoted himself even more strongly to prayer. Unfortunately, it was within the next year that his 3rd child passed away. I can't imagine the pain that Alphonsus must have been going through when all of this was happening. It was just tragedy after tragedy that was coming right towards Alphonsus. But he took all that pain and decided it was time to truly devote his entire life to his faith, and so he pursued joining a religious order. Now, his first attempt was to join the Jesuits because of his early interactions with Peter Faber. It just made sense. However, because he never completed his studies at the college he started almost 2 decades ago at that point, he wasn't accepted into the order. It's not perfectly clear if him completing college was an actual prerequisite, or if they didn't let him in because they thought he didn't complete because he wasn't actually devoted. They might have thought, like, oh, he started, but he didn't stick with it because it was just a fad for him. That the detail isn't exactly clear. But alongside that, there was another factor, and that was his age. He was 35 at the time he applied, and his health wasn't fantastic. He wasn't, like, terminally ill or anything, but he still wasn't in fantastic health. And also remember that this was around 1600. The average lifespan was just about 35 years old. Though to be fair, if you survived into your 20s, you could expect to live into your 50s maybe. But he didn't let that stop him. He kept trying, and finally when he was 39, he did try to complete some studies at the College of Barcelona to be allowed to join, but he was unsuccessful in this endeavor, again, because his health was waning, and his health was waning because he was living such an austere lifestyle, so it's just kind of a vicious cycle. Just about a year after this, though, he was able to join the Society of Jesus as a lay brother, and he joined them January 31st, 1571. He wasn't going to become a priest, but he could become the next best thing, in his eyes at least. Records don't really agree on where exactly he started his probation. It was either at Valencia or Gandia, but in any case, he was sent to the then newly founded College of Mallorca just 6 months after joining, and carried out the rest of his probationary period there. He was assigned as porter, and he held that position for 46 years, and he was proud to have that position. It may not seem like much, but he fulfilled his duties with unparalleled commitment. As porter, he received visitors coming to the college and would seek out whoever they came to talk to, whether it was teachers, students, whoever. He also delivered messages, ran simple errands, consoled the sick, comforted the spiritually ill, offered advice to the confused, and dispersed alms to the poor, really just about anything. Alphonsus said that every single time the bell rang at the door, he would imagine that it was God coming in, and gave everyone the same level of respect, love, and kindness that he would give to God. And it was here that he also met Peter Claver, who would go on to become a saint himself for his missionary work in South America for slaves. But back to how he treated people, could you imagine how great it would feel to be treated with that level of kindness and respect? It's something so simple and easy for anybody to do, yet it's something that we all struggle with. It's not that hard to be polite to a stranger, but it just seems easier to ignore any sort of potential interaction. Not necessarily be negative, but it's the line of neutrality. And it's a far too constant battle for most people to not get frustrated at menial tasks. I know I've had times when even a simple action takes me off a bit. Something that didn't seem like it should matter. Like maybe I was having a rougher day and wanted to throw a crumpled up piece of paper in the trash, missed, and it's just like one of those things that gets you more irritated than it really should. But Alphonsus worked really hard to avoid those feelings, and in the end it really just came naturally to him to be kind and loving to everybody. You know, he kind of reminds me of Saint Andre Bessette in a way. Well, I guess Alphonsus came before Andre Bessette, so Andre reminds me of Alphonsus, but you know what I mean. Alphonsus was exceptionally devoted to the Sacred Heart and the Virgin Mary, and he was known to give out copies of the book Little Office of the Blessed Virgin Mary to anybody who asked for it. Where he got so many copies still is kind of unknown. He just seemed to have an endless supply of them. Maybe they were miraculously multiplied. It wouldn't be the first multiplication miracle, and it's really not that far out of the realm of possibility, because his journals that he left behind revealed that he had visions of the Lord, of Mary, and other saints because of his devotion. So yeah, multiplying books doesn't seem like a total impossibility. It is also believed that Alphonsus really helped to popularize the book Little Office of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It was published before his life, but it wasn't crazy popular. His distribution to everybody and his love for it really pushed it out and made it prominent. Sadly, as he aged, his body and then his memory began to fail. Towards the end of his life, he couldn't even recall his favorite prayers. Ultimately, he would pass away October 31st, 1617, at 85 years old, well over the 50-year life expectancy. People at his bedside said that in his final moments, he looked at all of his brothers around him, and then kissed the crucifix in his hand, said, "Jesus," and drew his final breath. He left the world with invaluable manuscripts that have been published in Obras Espirituales del Brother Alonso Rodriguez, which is the spiritual works of Brother Alphonsus Rodriguez. In 1760, Clement XIII stated that the virtues of the Venerable Alonso were proved to be of a heroic degree, which would indicate that Alphonsus was on the path to being beatified and canonized. However, Alphonsus' society was expelled from Spain in 1773, so 13 years after Clement said this, and his cause was delayed because of it. There was some internal turmoil. Finally, though, Alphonsus Rodriguez was beatified June 5th, 1825, by Pope Leo XII, and then canonized on September 6th, 1888 by Pope Leo XIII, alongside his old friend Peter Claver. His feast day is October 31st, and he is the patron of Majorca, Spain. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them. So what do you think of Saint Alphonsus Rodriguez? What about his commitment to serving others as he would serve the Lord? I hope you found his story interesting and inspiring, and I look forward to learning your thoughts on Saint Alphonsus. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to support the channel, you can subscribe, download the episode, like, comment, share with your friends, or send me a suggestion on a saint to check out by emailing me at sanctifiedpodcast@proton.me. I upload once a week, every Thursday. I try to get right around 3 p.m., sometimes I'm a little bit late. You can find the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Podbean, and more. Just search for the Sanctified Podcast if you want to mix up whatever service you're using, and I should have some episodes uploaded. Take care, and have a wonderful day.